Shalom and welcome to this week's Hebrew class. And as every other week, we're going through the book of John in Hebrew, and we are dealing with chapter 2 of John, or Yehuchanan, and it's verses 6 to 9. So let us now begin. And just for anyone who's relatively new or drops in, we have a chart here called the Nikud, which are the vowel markings, and of course the useful resources which are invariably important when we are learning our Hebrew. This is a very good site. It gives us transliteration, it gives us translations, it's even color-coded to help us, and also we have the Do It in Hebrew dictionary and a chart to show you how we use the vowels. So let us begin. And so we're in verse 6. It's represented with a vav, the reason being that is the sixth letter of the alphabet. Because every letter has a numerical value, and therefore we can then have gematria, which sort of teaches us the value of words in numerical value. So let us begin. And we have firstly the letters, which is the vav, shin, mem sofit, Shin, Shin, Hey, Kaf, Dalet, Yod, Aleph, Vayet, Nun Sofit, meaning the Nun at the end of a word. Then we have Ayin, Resh, Vav, Kaf, Yod, Mem Sofit, Kaf, Mem, Shin, Pei, and Tet. And just to highlight this, when we see a dagesh in there, then it is a vowel mark, which is the oo sound, but that replaces the actual vav. So we just say the vowel mark. And if we see any white letters, it also tells us that we don't pronounce them. So I've made it simple with the color coding to help you pronounce it. So now we begin. Va-sham, va-sham, and there. And I've included were, and there were she, sha. Its meaning is six. If we look down there, shesh is a masculine noun for six. And then we have kadeh even. Kadeh is pictures. So if we look down here, kad is the root word there, masculine noun for jug, pitcher, vase, or vessel. So pictures, and then I've added of. And the reason we add of is this ending here with the zere, and the yod is like a construct form. So it's pictures of, even, meaning stone. And then we have arukim, arukim, arranged. And now if we look down here, we've got aruk, which is an adjective meaning arranged, prepared, organized. And I've also given you arak, which is the col verb form, and it means to arrange. And then we have kemishpat, kemishpat. The kaf is like, and then mishpat. Now, if we look down here, mishpat is a masculine noun. It means a law, an ordinance, a judgment, a verdict, a court hearing even. Right? So therefore we have the ordinance, like the ordinance. And then I've given you also the verb form, shafat, which is a col verb to judge, to sentence. So shafat means to judge. So it's like the verb form, and that's the noun form. Right, so the translation is 6 stone pitchers were prepared there according to the ordinance. And one thing I need to remind us, that's an ordinance introduced by rabbinic tradition. It's not Torah ordinance. And so we have va-sham, shisha, kadeh, even, arukim, Kemishpat. And of course the translation again. And there were 6 pitchers of stone arranged like the ordinance. And now we come to part B, and we have a hey, a yod, a hey, a vav, a dalet, a yod, a mem, so fit. Mem at the end of the word. Lamed, tet, hey, resh, tav, mem, so fit. Shin, tav, yod, mem, so fit. Aleph, vav, shin, lamed, shin, bet, tav, yod, mem, so fit. And we read it. Ha Yehudim, the Yehudim, or the Jews. Le taharata, for their purification. Now the lamed is for. Tahar means to purify or to cleanse. And then we've got the at the end, meaning there. So if we look down here, we've got tahar. Is a kol verb, to be purified, to be cleansed. And then we've got shetayim, 2. And then we've got o, which means or, and as we can see the aleph is silent. And then we've got shalosh, meaning 3 or 3, 2 or 3. Batim, which is translated as firkins, right? So therefore I've given you batim, translated as firkins, which is 41 litres or metrics. It is equivalent to the Hebrew bat. And we find that in 2 Chronicles 4:5. And the synonyms include barrel, cask, or keg. So I've given you that information just to give you more detail, right? So the translation, the ordinance of the Jews for their purification, 2 or 3 firkins, which is 18 to 27 gallons. If we're dealing in gallons, that's it. But I've given you also litres here. Right, so now we can read that. And it is, Ha Yehudim, le taharatam, shetayim, o shalosh batim. And the translation, the Yehudim for their purifications, 2 or 3 firkins, or we could say batims, right? It comes from batims, which is a measurement of 41 litres. And so we now come to 6c. And we have a yod, kaf, yod, lamed. Kaf, lamed, aleph, chet, dalet. So we read it, yakil, to contain. So how do we get that? It comes from hekil, is a verb to contain, to hold, to compromise. Remembering that also yakol is a kol verb, to be able or could have. So we sort of see just the roots of those words, you know. So yakol is to be able. So they translate it kill as to contain. So we can sort of see where the root comes from. It's able to hold, we could say, right? Kol, and that could be every. Why is it every? Because echad means one, every one, rather than kol, which can also mean all. Now, why have I said kol? Well, down here I've explained it. Kol is a prep, all, any, every. The kamatz rule is it is said as an O in a closed, unaccented syllable, usually the first. The first syllable is normally unaccented, so therefore we can say kol, because it's like there's only one syllable, right? Right, so then from the translation, it is 20 or 30 gallons of water, each one held. So now we read it, and it is yakil, kol echad, to contain every one. And now we come to 7, and it's represented with the Zion, which is the 7th letter of the alphabet. Then we have a Vav, Yod, Aleph, Mem, Resh. Aleph, Lamed, Yod, He, Mem, Sofit, Yod, He, Vav, Shin, Ayin, Mem, Lamed, Aleph, Vav, He, Kav, Dalet, Yod, Mem, Sofit, Mem, Yod, Mem, Sofit. Remembering the white ones, they are not pronounced. So we read it. Va yomer. And he said, because there's no sort of marking to tell you who said, it's always a he. Alehem, unto them. Yahushua, or Yahusha, malu, you fill. And that's because it's sort of he's talking in the second person. So he said, which means Yeshua is speaking. So therefore it becomes you fill rather than they fill, which is third person. So you fill ha-kadim, meaning the pictures, mayam, and I've added with water, because naturally that just says water. Fill the pitchers water. So it's just Hebrew's a bit simpler than English, so we add with water. So Yeshua said to them, fill the water pots with water. And now I've given you also malay, which is a kol verb, to fill, to become full, and it can even mean to reach an age. And I've given you kad again, masculine noun for judge, jar, pitcher, vase. And then I've given you something here. Matthew 26:6, translated as Simon the leper, could be the jar merchant, since the Aramaic words garobo means leper and garibo means jar merchant. And why I'm mentioning that is because in the context of Matthew, it's quite possible that they've mistranslated that. And so I've given you the alternative. Right, so we read it. Vayomer alehem Yahushua malu ha-kadim mayim. And he said unto them, Yahusha, you fill the pitchers with water. And so we turn the page. We're in 7b now. We have a Vav, Yod, Mem, Aleph, Lamed, Mem, Lamed, Aleph, Vav, Mem, Sofit. Ayin, Dalet, Lamed, Mem, Ayin, Lamed, Hey. So we read it. Ve mal Ve malum. And they filled them. So how do we get that? Firstly, the root is malay, kol verb to fill, to complete, to fill, right? So we got mala there, or malay. And then we got un. Now the u can be taken as they. And then with the vav and the yod, it means it's a complete, if it was just a yod, it'd be future. With the vav, it changes the tense. So, and they filled, and then the memso fit them. So we need to learn those sort of how to identify the pronouns, etc., and the tense. And they filled them. And that's why I've given you they is the u, the mem is them. Right, and then I've got ad, which can be until or as far as. If we look at ad down there, it means until, up to, as far as. So I've used as far as le mala. Now we know mala means upward, top, above. So we could say to, that's the lamed, to the top, as far as to the top. And the normal English just says, and they filled them up to the brim, which is still the same. So therefore, now we can read it. Ve mal ad le la. And they filled them as far as to the top. And now we come to 8. And it's represented with a chet, which, if we know, it's the 8th letter of the alphabet. And then we have Vav, Yod, Aleph, Mem, Resh, Shin, Aleph, Vayet, Vav, Nun, Aleph, Vav, He, Vayet, Yod, Aleph, Vav, Aleph, Lamed, Resh, Vayet. And we read it. Vayomer, and he said, Sha'avu na, which is you draw out. Again, because he's talking at second person, so you draw. So let's have a look at the word sha'av. It's a kal verb to draw, to pump, to vacuum, right? Not that they have vacuums back then, but and then na can be translated as now. You draw out now. Right, now I've got down in na has the meaning of now or please. Sometimes it's used as please, sometimes as now. The ha, vi, u, and you bring it. Again, it's still in the second person, so then it becomes the u is you, not they. And of course the vav is and then we've got ha-vi. Ha-vi is like causative, right? The hey there is like causative. And vi is, with the yod there, it always means to bring. So, and you bring, and then I've added it, and you bring it. All right, now I've got down here, hevi is a verb to bring, to transport. And then I've got el, which is to, rav, meaning the master. And it literally means rabbi. So, and then I've got down here, pakid, which is an alternative translation where it represents clerk, official, functionary. But in this form, rav, it literally means the rabbi. So it's like the chief rabbi was the one who was overseeing it, which seems logical because it was a wedding, but often they would have a rabbi who would run it. So let us read that. Vayomer sha'avu na ve'havi'u el rav. With the translation. And he said, you draw out now, and you bring it to the master. And now we come to B, and we got Hey, Mem, Samak, Bayet, Hey, Vav, Yod, Vayet, Yod, Aleph, Vav. And we read, Ha, Mesiba, of the banquet, right? So we know that the banquet, that's what that means, Mesiba. Feminine noun meaning a reception, a gathering, a party, a banquet. And vaya vu, again with the prefix telling you it's a completed action. And this time we can say, and they brought it. So now the u, it's not second person, not someone talking, making it second person, and they brought it, because now it's third person. So we just have to identify the in the context of the sentence. So therefore, to the master of the ceremonies of the banquet, and they brought it. Right, and then I've added a comment, most likely the chief rabbi, considering the pictures for purification, was a rabbinic tradition. So that actually makes it more obvious that it most likely was a chief rabbi also. And now we read it. Ha mesiba vaya viu. Of the banquet, and they brought it. And now we come to 9a, represented with the tet, which is the ninth letter of the alphabet. And then we go through the letters. Vav, Yod, Tet, Ayin, Mem, Sofit. Resh, Aleph, Shin. Hey, Mem, Samak, Bayit, Hey. Aleph, Tav, Hey, Mem, Yod, Mem, Sofit. Aleph, Shin, Resh. And then we go Va, Yit, Vayitam. And he tasted. So what's the root? Ta'am. Kol verb to taste, to savor, to experience. Rosh meaning the head, and I've added of, and he tasted the head of. Ha me siba meaning the banquet. Et grammar marker ha mayim meaning the water. Asher that. The head of the banquet tasted the water that. And so we can read it now. Vayitam Rosh ha-mesiba et ha-mayim asher. And he tasted the head of the banquet, grammar marker, the water that. And now we come to part B of 9. And we have a nun, hey, fei, because there's no dot in it, so it's a fei, kaf, vav. Lamed, yod, nun sofit. It's a nun at the end of a word, because it's different than a normal nun. And then we have vav, lamed, aleph, yod, dalet, ayin, which is silent, mem, aleph, yod, nun sofit, nun at the end of a word, Hey, Vav, Aleph, that's silent. Vav, Hey, Mem, Shin, Resh, Tav, Yod, Mem, Sofit. So now we read it. Ne, Hef, Ku. Ne, Hef, Ku. It had turned. So again, the ending is like the pronoun, and it could be it rather than they, because it's talking about the water. Right, so it had turned. So let's have a look. If we look here, hofek is a verb to change, to turn, to invert, to transform. It had turned or transformed, and it's a nifil verb. Le, ya, yin, to wine. Right, ya, yin is wine, to wine. Velo, and not yada. He knew, me'ayin, from where. If we look down here, ayin means not, nothing, naught, nil. So me'ayin is an adverb meaning from where. And literally, a literal translation would be from not. From not or from nowhere. But that's why they generally translate from where. Who? So that can be it is, or it was. The hamsharatim, and the servants. So how do we get that? We've got the word here, sharet, which is a PL verb to serve, to assist, to help. So then we have mesharet, which is a noun, meaning servant, butler, footman, or manservant. And the translation is tasted the water that had turned into wine, not knowing where it was from, but the servants. So now we can read that. And it is ne hefku le yayin velo yada me'ayin hu ve hamsharatim. It had turned to wine, and not he knew from where it was, and the servants. And often that's translated, but the servants. And so we come to 9c, and we have an aleph, a shin, a resh, a shin, an aleph, vayet, vav, aleph, tav, hey, mem, yod, mem, safit, yod, dalet, ayin, vav, vav, yod, kuf, resh, aleph. And we read it. A shear, that sha'avu, they had drawn. So the servants that they had drawn, et gremamaga ha'mayim, the water, yada'u, they knew, va'yikra, and he called. The servants who had drawn the water knew, and they have a full stop, then called, or then he called. Right, so now we can read that. Ashir sha'avu et ha'mayim yada'u va'yikra. That they had drawn, grammar marker, the water. They knew, and he called. So now we have 9d, and we have a resh, aleph, shin, hey, mem, samak, bet, hey, aleph, lamed, hey, chet, tav, nun safit. And there's rosh, meaning the head of ha-mesibah, the banquet. L2, he, chatan, the groom. If we remember, chatan is a masculine noun meaning groom or bridegroom. Chiten is a piel verb to perform a marriage, and chutan is a verb to be married, to be matched. And the translation called the master of ceremonies to the groom. So now we can read it. Rosh ha-mesibah el he-chatan. The head of the banquet to the groom. And that brings us now to the end of this week's lesson, but we now look at the revision to see just how well we've coped with it. First, we know that we have a vav, which means we're in verse 6, and then we read it. Va sham, and there, or there were, shisha, 6, kadeh, pitchers of even, stone, arukim, prepared, ke mishpat, like the ordinance, like the judgment. And there were 6 pitchers of stone arranged like the ordinance of HaYehudim, the Jews, letaharatam, for their purification or their cleansing. Shetayim, 2, or shalosh, 3, batims, which is bath, but in translation it's firkins. Right, the Yehudim for their purification, 2 or 3 firkins, which is 41 litres. And then we have Yakil to contain kol, every, echad, 1. To contain every one. And then we come to Zion, which is the 7th letter. So therefore it is value of 7. Vayomer, and he said, Elehem, unto them, Yahushua, Malu, you fill ha-kadim, the pitchers, mayim, with water. And he said unto them, Yahushua, you fill the pitchers with water. Ve'malum, and they filled them as far as or until le mala, to the top. And they filled them as far as to the top. And then we have a chet, which has a value of 8. We're in verse 8. And so we read, Va yomer, and he said, Sha avu na. So you draw out now the ha viu, and you bring, and we could add it, el to Rav, the rabbi. And he said, you draw out now, and you bring it to the master. Because Rav can mean master or rabbi. And now we come to 8b, which is ha-me-siba, meaning the banquet. Vaya viu, and they brought it. Of the banquet, and they brought it. And then we have a tet, value of 9. Vayitam, and he tasted. Rosh, meaning the head, the one who's the head of the party, right, tasted. Ha-mesiba, of the banquet, et, grammar marker, ha-mayim, the water, ashir, that. So, and he tasted the head of the banquet, grammar marker, the water, that, ne hefku, which is, of course, it had turned, le yayin, to wine, velo, and not yada, he knew, me'ayin, from where, who it was, we could say, v'ham sharatim, and or but the servants. It had turned to wine, and not he knew from where it was, and the servants. Ashir, that, sha'avu, they had drawn out, et ha-mayim, the water, yada'u, they knew, va'yikra, and he called, that they had drawn, grammar marker, the water, they knew, and it's like a new sentence, and he called, Rosh, meaning the head of ha-mesiba, the banquet, el to he-chatan, to the bridegroom. The head of the banquet to the groom. And so we come to the vowel markings. And today we will just look at the first line. This is a vav, but when there's a dot above it, often, not all the time, often it replaces the sound of the vav. Sometimes the dot is a bit further over, and then like with mitzvot, that's one of the unique ones where we actually say the vav, but generally we just say the O sound because it's called a cholam. And this is called a shva. It's a break in the word, like a syllable break. And then we have segol, which is a short E sound. Then we have zere, it's a longer E sound. Then we have patak, short A sound. Kama, it's a longer A sound. So now we will come to the last page. And again, we have the resources, which we want to encourage you, use them, because they will help you so much. And so let us look at some of the letters. So we're looking at Vav is 6, Lamed is 30, Zade is 90, Tav is 400, Fe is 80, Kaf is 20, He is 5, Dalet is 4, Yod is 10, Ayin is 70, Shin is 300. So I did it that way so that we don't get used to just a sequence, but actually we look at the letter and we try to remember the value of that letter. So we look at a kaf and we should look at it and say 20. We look at a samek and we say 60. So we have to get used to those values of each letter. And so we'd like to thank you for joining us, and we do pray that these are truly a blessing to you. And so we want to wish you a Shavua Tov, a good week, in the name of our glorious Master and Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach. May you have a great week. Amen.